So, one of the films that I saw in theaters while the world was still open was a new release from Universal, and it was The Invisible Man, starring Elizabeth Moss, who you may recognize from Her Smell, or Mad Men, or Handmaid's Tale, or the other 200 things that she's been in. She's very, very popular with the youth. This is yet another attempt from Universal to update the old classic Universal monsters for modern audiences. They've had I could be generous and say varying levels of success. They've had like no success with this. There was a Dracula, was it some Dracula Untold? There was some Dracula movie that tanked. There was the Tom Cruise Mummy movie, which I actually liked. I thought it was fun. It was sort of like an Army of Darkness vibe. It wasn't serious. It was heavy CGI. It was a fun action movie, and that movie really tried to set up this new dark world or dark universe for Universal, but it tanked, and everything it set up just sort of whiffled away in the wind. There was the Benicio del Toro Wolfman movie, which I thought was pretty good. I don't honestly remember much about it, but I remember liking it. And now we have Invisible Man. And I have to say, out of all of those, I think The Invisible Man is the most successful attempt at doing this. The other films were kind of throwbacks to something else. The Wolfman was definitely a throwback to Universal horror, and it was well done, but it was a throwback to Universal and Hammer and things like that. But this Invisible Man, this is dead contemporary. This isn't trying to harken back to any other version of the Invisible Man you've seen, though many have said it's a heck of a lot like Hollow Man with Kevin Bacon from many years ago. So Invisible Man, basically, it doesn't waste any time. It's a lean, mean, invisible machine. You have Elizabeth Moss waking up and sneaking out of her house, escaping. And what I love is that it uses cinema to the best of its ability, in that there's no heavy preamble, there's no camera panning over photographs and voicemail messages. She wakes up, and you can tell just from her silent acting that she's trying to escape from a bad situation. Turns out her husband is abusive and controlling and a bit of a maniac and a scientist, mad scientist if you cross him. And he has developed the power of invisibility, or something that allows him to be invisible. This is what we sort of glean as the film progresses. Basically, it's an abused woman movie. It's a Me Too era Invisible Man movie. So it is kind of funny to call the movie The Invisible Man when the movie's really about somebody else, but probably the Invisible Man's wife. The Invisible Man's abused, and a fleeing wife is not a very smooth sounding title, so we go with The Invisible Man. Sits nicely on the shelf next to the other movies and shows called The Invisible Man. So basically, it's about Moss escaping, and what I loved about it was that there's enough. The story gives the audience and everybody around her enough of a question as to whether she might just be crazy or imagining these things, up to a point that you wonder, is this in her head, or is this really some invisible maniac trying to get her? It's extremely well done. It takes its time. It's not dumb. It's a movie for grown-ups in terms of its content and its subject matter and how it handles it. It does have some violencia here and there. It has a moment of extreme violence that was shocking to me when I saw it. But at the same time, the way it was conveyed was almost laughable. It was really like, oh, if I saw this with the wrong audience, I think people would be laughing at this moment right now. But it's shocking. And it's one of those, you almost yelp out something when you see it, because it kicks the movie's storyline and situation right up the wazoo, because it's really like, wow, she's really hosed now. So I thought Invisible Man was really good. It maybe could bear a sequel or two if it was popular enough, but will it be popular enough? How do you judge it? This movie was released, after a week a global pandemic shut movie theaters down. So, when I was thinking about doing the show, I'm still talking about Invisible Man. When I was thinking about doing the show again, I'm like, well, I'm going to talk about theatrical movies that nobody can see. That's not true. Universal has done something interesting, something controversial. They are allowing people to rent recent releases, Invisible Man, The Hunt, which I'll also talk about, and maybe something else, for the home for $20. And a lot of people are saying, hey, this is great. It's cheaper than going to the movies, blah, blah, blah. I'll get some friends together. It's affordable. Other people are saying, are you nuts? $20 to watch a movie at home that I can't keep? And others that I kind of side with are saying, this is kind of hosing movie theaters. Studios, I don't know how well aware you are of the relationship between movie theaters and studios. Studios take the majority of the ticket money you pay for the first several weeks. It's like a sliding scale. There's a percentage. The vast majority for the first several weeks of release, go to the studio. The theater makes almost nothing. That's why they sell food at high prices. And as time goes on, the longer a theater has a movie, they get a greater percentage of the ticket sales. But the longer a theater has a movie, usually the fewer people are going, so they're still not making that much money on it. Right now, Universal is cutting the theaters entirely out and saying, $20, you pay it to us, you see the movie. Theaters have long worried about what they call the window, the theatrical window, the amount of time between a theatrical release and a video release. It used to be a really long time, and as time has gone on and on, that release window has gotten smaller and smaller. Theaters want to use the hubbub and all the money they paid to advertise a theatrical release to keep it fresh in people's minds for video, so they strike while the iron is hot and they put things out on video as fast as they can. Theaters don't like that because the people know, well, geez, if I wait 3 weeks, it's on video, why should I see it in the theater? I like the theatrical experience. It is flawed. It is flawed when people are not nice to their fellow consumer and are annoying and distracting. It's flawed when there's technical issues in the theater, but to me, there's no way to get lost in a movie better than on a giant screen surrounded by strangers or nobody in the dark. So if you choose to do so, you could rent The Invisible Man for $20, or wait a few months and buy it for 10. Or you could wait until the theaters open again. Now, honestly, the theaters are probably not going to open again for a while, and when they do, I don't know if The Invisible Man is still anything anybody's going to want to see. But I think it's definitely worth seeing. I think Elisabeth Moss is fantastic in it, as she always is. It's a good cast, not a tremendous number of familiar faces in the cast from what I recall, but it's really well made, and hopefully the success of this, hopefully it's a success. Hopefully it bodes well for Universal putting more time and energy into the writing of these films and not making them just special effects extravaganzas. Yes, there are special effects in this movie, but it's really about people. And the movies that I find to be the best movies these days are movies about people. Yes, those people can have lasers and be riding on the backs of dinosaurs who also become werewolves, but it's people at its core. So I think The Invisible Man was really good. I think it's worth seeing or worth waiting to see. Please support your local theater, and I will be back with more soon.